Item 4.3, Board of Governors campus visit for 2012. Chancellor, is that yours?
Yes, I had thought of several possibilities, and I contacted Constance Carroll, the Chancellor of the San Diego District, asking if it were possible for San Diego City to be a location for our September meeting. She said it would be great. They would love to have us. The advantages are there are several colleges in the San Diego area, but San Diego City is the closest to the airport. It is also very close to a lot of hotels. So it is my recommendation, after receiving that affirmation from Constance Carroll, the Chancellor of the San Diego Community College District, and given the fact that we haven't met in San Diego in quite a while, and given the fact that next year we should meet in Southern California, we met in El Camino, if you remember, a year before, I would recommend that we choose San Diego as our September board meeting.
Comments by board members? Member Malumed.
Remind me, did we discuss this in a previous meeting or two? We did?
We did our last meeting, and we gave direction to the chancellor to research various venues and come back with a recommendation.
I was just wondering if you researched the College of the Desert?
No, I did not.
You did not.
I felt like getting to Palm Springs was a little more difficult than getting to San Diego as far as the
Sacramento to Palm Springs flight, is that what you mean?
well, I just meant that the flights are not nearly as frequent.
Right,
But,
right.
Member Baca, then Member Baum.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to reverse that.
Okay.
Can I come second? And then
Oh, Member Baum, then Member Baca.
I just want to reassert what I've always said. I think it's great for us to get out of the system office and into a campus. And you learn so much, and you feel, just by being here at Butte College, and thanks to the folks that have made this visit possible, it's just is so helpful and enlightens our decision-making much more richly. And so if we could ever get to a point where we could do 2 off-site visits, and then I was going to also pitch Mount Sac as a possible district too. It's the largest enrollment community college. We have never been to the San Gabriel Valley, and at some point I hope that would be in the.
I heard that from Member Baca last night.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Member
I
Baca.
deferred to him because I figured that maybe he was going to bring it up. But I did check the list of sites that we've been to, and the only place that we haven't really been to is the San Gabriel Valley. But nobody knows about that place seemingly, but it does exist. And once we get the NFL team there, I guess we'll exist.
The San Gabriel Chargers?
San Gabriel Chargers, exactly. Anyway, it's for future thought because I'm
Aye.
frankly okay with San Diego, but
Yeah.
it would be a good idea to have Mount Sinai.
I would love to see that. And I would
site.
agree that College of the Desert is actually quite accessible. I'm learning that more and more every day.
Yeah,
It's a quick visit too.
well, I don't have any skin in this game. I don't really care. I researched that one, and I'll be glad to research some more if this is what the board wants. It's all I can tell you is that maybe Vice Chancellor Garcia can fill us in a little bit more. But our biggest problem in having 2 meetings is that nearly all of our meetings in the spring are tied up, with the exception of January. And I thought it might be a little close to try to go somewhere else in January. But we have the Advocacy Day in March. What are the other,
And then we have our legislative reception,
In May.
In
and then we
May.
have the Rice Awards.
and then the Rice Awards in July. So that basically ties up from March until July.
and so that's the reason I thought we'd keep those in Sacramento. But if somebody wants to vote on another site, I'll be glad to research it.
My
Member
concern, we used to have our away meetings in November. So I don't know why we're thinking September.
Isn't this
This is
This is
September,
September.
but we
But it's
changed
traditionally
this.
in
We moved it
Yeah,
because the
was
Veterans
usually
Conference, I
November.
think, was going to be. Was
And
that
because
why
of
we-
all the conferences.
Why did we move it this year? Because of the
Well,
Veterans
we,
Conference or something?
we also moved it because of weather
That wasn't it.
concerns. If you recall, at
Right,
first,
we
we
were
were going to
gonna
go
go
to
somewhere
College of
else.
the Redwoods, and then
That's right.
thinking up here, did we want to,
El Camino was in November and San Francisco
Yeah,
was
we
in
usually did it
November.
in November, our away meeting.
right, I mean, personally, I don't know that it matters if it's September or
It doesn't.
or November.
I would like to request November
I would,
Yeah?
as an away meeting.
I would and again, I like the idea of San Diego City because I'd like to see, be an urban district
Yeah.
at the border,
Yeah,
too. I think that is a great idea.
Yeah.
And so I'd support that, but I'd still love to see Mount Sac as the place to visit at some point.
sure. Okay, and I'm not, what is the rationale behind wanting it to be in November as opposed to September?
I find, for me personally, I think that there's less, it's easier to get away. There's so much still happening in the September beginning of school year and all that. There's more time to gear up for November. That's my personal preference. And that's what I just have been used to. I don't know if you had other rationale.
My rationale was related to the Sacramento legislative calendar, but so they're in September. So it doesn't affect me for September next year.
2012,
Because
I
it
can
ends
tell you,
August 31st. so it doesn't
they
affect me.
adjourn on August 31st.
Right. So
Because that's
that-
an election year.
Right. So that doesn't affect me in that way.
Now, what is the date in November? This is 2012. We sure got to avoid an election. There sure will be an election.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Staff was going to come back with recommendations on that one.
That was for
what we were talking-
13. We've
it
already
was
set our 12.
13, yeah. Any other thoughts on September versus November? I mean, I would personally lean toward September and be back in Sacramento in November, but I guess it's not that big a deal.
It might make a difference to the college.
There are major conferences in November, the Academic Senate plenary session, CCLC, and then you add this go away, and I know for the chancellor's staff, they attend those also. So, both of those conferences, so it just kind of piles everything up in November.
Okay,
But you'd have to go to a board meeting anyway.
yeah.
I'm flexible now that I think it through.
Okay. Member Izumi.
I mean, the only thing that I would think in September, if, again, it's a weather issue, depending on whether you went to San Diego or to the College of the Desert, it'd be a whole lot hotter in September.
Right, yeah.
in the College of the Desert than in San Diego.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
I think it might depend a little bit on which geographic site we chose. That might be most comfortable for us.
I think that's why we did this one in September.
Yeah, it was. So I don't, it won't matter in San Diego.
Right. You're perfect all year round.
Almost,
America's finest city.
almost. So from here, we're at a first reading, and we have a recommendation of San Diego, and I've heard no overwhelming call to change it to November. So I guess that's how it's going to come back for us to vote in November. Okay? Is that correct, Steve?
It'll come back. I was distracted. I hear
I just said, what I heard is that there's a recommendation for San Diego in September, to have our meeting in San Diego in September. I have not heard an overwhelming call to move it to November. So I would assume it would come back to us for a vote in September.
Correct.
Come back in November for a vote in September.
That's right. That's
That's a
right.
song, I think.
Anybody else want to make any other
Give Peter more chocolate.
Yeah.
comment? Other than I'll have to dream up something very special in San Diego in September. Okay.